This is Kennedy International Airport. It's an airport that's a problem in Microsoft Flight Simulator thanks to some performance issues. It's a sure way to fry your frame rates, hitting them right down to, well, pretty low. I know a lot of people on their PC build, regardless of build, have been having issues. So in this video I did kind of want to move on to other things beyond performance, but people have asked me to take a look at the airliners at built up areas, so here we are. So this right now is running on the Xbox Series X. We've got an A320 at Kennedy Airport heading towards New York at the flyover of Manhattan, and as you can see there's absolutely no issues at all with frame rate. A little further into the video there'll be a short frame rate counter on here, but overall you'll see we've got locked in at 30 frames a second, so working very nice. Now, one of the problems airliners have always had with Microsoft Flight Simulators is the glass cockpits. These are the multifunctional displays that you see on the HUD there on the dashboard. Basically, these are very demanding. They use a lot of computational power, a lot of processing power, and they generally drag the frame rate right down. For the Xbox release and for PC when it arrives in Sim Update 5 on the 27th of July, Asobo have fixed all this by moving the calculations for the glass cockpits over to its own unique CPU thread, and that opens up a whole world of new performance. A good number of you have also mentioned that the tree draw distance also kind of got nerfed or whatever down in recent updates. That is on the PC version, of course. You can see right here that has been fixed. The draw distance goes all the way to the horizon, or seemingly so at least, and it goes the same way for trees as well. Over in the distance, once again, we can see Manhattan. Pay attention to that because it's a slightly different story when we get to the Xbox Series S, where you'll notice a lot of pop in and pop out. But it's a bit of a compromise because the frame rate's still locked pretty much at 30 frames a second, even with this airliner. So here we are, Xbox Series S, once again on the runway, taking off. And again, anyone who's played these sorts of things on the PC will notice that there's a lot of hitching, a lot of stutter, and generally speaking, all around worse performance than what we're seeing here. So huge improvements. So coming up to Manhattan once again, and here you'll start to notice a little bit of pop in and pop out. And over on the far left there, you'll see the relatively close draw distance. But ultimately, just how much of a problem is that? After all, this is a Microsoft Flight Simulator, one of the most demanding games ever made, running on a £250 console. Now, in the upcoming videos, in the next lot of videos, I do want to focus on other areas of the sim, but I do know that many people had a lot of concerns over performance when it comes to the Series S as well as the Series X. So videos today were kind of there to address that, so hopefully they've really helped to answer your questions. Before we move on to one other thing then that I want to show you, very much related to this, let's jump back into the cockpit here quickly, just for another look around to see how things are working. Again, all this is on the Xbox Series S. Very nice. Now, to give you an idea of how things were previously, this is from a slightly older video from me, running on an RTX 3080 on PC. You can see all the settings on the screen right here, deliberately running at a very low resolution, just to show that the game was CPU bound at this particular point. This again is Kennedy Airport, using an airliner, and really 33 frames a second on an RTX 3080 at this resolution was definitely a bit of a problem. It's an issue then I know many people were suffering from, regardless of whether they had high-end hardware or medium-end hardware or even some lower-end hardware. Here then is pretty much the same scene. We're in an airliner, again at Kennedy Airport. We're in a storm, and the only thing that's really different here is the time of day. This is running on the Xbox Series S. So all in all, some pretty neat performance here. Let's just get outside and have a look at the external view, because there's one other thing I know you are going to want to see, and this is the new tyre effects. Look at that, kicking up the water there. Pretty neat, eh? Purely for the purpose of being a completionist then, here is the exact same scene again, running this time on the Xbox Series X. Now, as I mentioned earlier on in the day, this version of the Microsoft Flight Simulator is basically Sim Update 5. There are a bunch of different other things that we can take a look at. going to be checking some of that out tomorrow. There's a few nice changes that I think are going to improve the sim overall. So I'll be back very soon to take a look at all of that. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys and girls next time.